the immigrant wave is still coming in, and it continues unabated. And the German Economic Institute in Cologne projected the cost of feeding, housing, and educating these immigrants will come up to approximately 38 billion euros by the end of 2017. This has forced the Merkel government to consider a tax to foot the bill. And this is very disconcerting because Germany is heavily taxed. In the wake of the New Year's Eve situation in Cologne, tensions remain high. And the police have also basically argued that there's rising tensions among certain elements within the German communities, including the new immigrants. And basically, Merkel has now realized, or at least recognized, that this refugee crisis is essentially out of control. France, on the other hand, is an interesting one. They find out that a lot of the immigrants are not going to France, and there's a sound reason. 3.6 million jobless, and their youth rate of unemployment is at 24.5%. Compared to Germany's 7%. So youth unemployment is a real issue. And for immigrants coming into that country, not knowing the language, the culture, and maybe not having the education, that only exacerbates the situation. And so in areas of the suburbs that are migrant, there's an estimate of 30 to 35% unemployment by a growing sector of French society. So, quite frankly, when we look at this, few migrants then seek France. They favor Sweden, Denmark, and Germany for their refugee social benefits. But again, there is growing political pressure to deal with this asylum issues and these seekers. For example, in Denmark, they're now seizing any monies or jewelry that is over a certain amount in order for them to assist in paying their time there. And this is, again, very problematic. One source reported that 50% of asylum seekers have gone into hiding in Germany. So this is very, very difficult because not only the police and security forces cannot clear them, the fact is that they may not be bona fide migrants, and in turn could be criminal or possibly extremist elements. And that draws a schism between the population and indeed the migrants themselves. And they're also, it's been noted that they may be also trying to avoid deportation in the future. A number, interesting enough, of Muslims have turned to Christianity. And so they could then say that they're Christians, and to send them back into the Middle East it would be compromising, and they are extremely vulnerable. So it's interesting in that regard. But the bottom line is many of these immigrants have simply vanished into the woodwork. German authorities estimate there are hundreds of thousands that entered Germany without being registered. So there is no documentation on these individuals. There's no fingerprints, biometrics. They don't know who's there. So when you look at the Schengen Agreement, they're allowed to go through 28 separate countries, with no identification. That becomes really problematic. And then questions who's in control of that region. So again, from a security point of view, it is rather debilitating. Also, the German government is also looking at ways of facilitating the deportation of migrants. Because generally speaking, it's very, once you're in, it's like Canada, it's hard to deport these individuals. And so they're looking at new laws. Should an individual be found to have committed a crime, they should be deported. The fact is that through the deportation, they will have all their identity taken care of in the sense of fingerprints, biometrics, descriptions, photos, that sort of routine. So they won't be able to get back in. So those are some of the issues that they're facing. But what is, in my view, interesting is that there was a poll by Focus, a media outlet in Germany, that basically noted that half of Germans were unhappy with Merkel and believed that she should resign due to her open door policy. So initially, all those people that were welcoming immigrants early on in August and September now have seemed to have vanished, and now you have a large number that are awaiting assimilation, which will be very difficult, I think, in the short and long term, and exceedingly costly. Another issue that was rather disconcerting was that Germany's interior minister, Gerd Müller, warned that the biggest refugee movement to Europe is yet to happen, and will include 8 to 10 million immigrants coming to Europe. And again, I would argue they would probably go to important centers such as Germany, Denmark, or Sweden, where they can get the full range of social benefits and refugee benefits in comparison to, let's say, one of the Baltic states. Even Germany and Austria, they're now asking for identification, because all along through the exterior borders where these people came in from, including now, some will fly to Moscow, then fly to the northern part of Russia and Finland and cross by bicycle. And that's happening now. Now, it's not that many, but it is disconcerting to the Finnish authorities because 700, 800 coming over at a time could be rather disconcerting. And also it stresses the social fabric and the economic issues relating to immigration into that country, because they don't have that many immigrants, so to speak. It's interesting because of the amount of shall we say false passports floating around. Not to mention the issue upcoming. I mean, this is in 2 or 3 years. When those individuals become German citizens, the United States is still very concerned about infiltration, and not to mention an infiltration into Europe as a gateway to the United States. And as Germany does not require, or is not required to have visas, this potential threat, as the Americans see that, is that these individuals could be sleeper agents, possibly, or could be just individuals seeking maybe a new life and plead a refugee moment in the United States. But the fact is that they are looking at putting a visa on German passports, and Homeland Security is contemplating this. And because of the concern over the proliferation of fake passports, and also the potential of sleeper agents coming through the visa stream, we always have to remain alert. I mean, the CBSA, the intelligence organizations, and our police are always on the alert, looking at these issues. But first and foremost is our own refugee stream. We must ensure that they are bona fide refugees, that they are vulnerable. Generally speaking, you want individuals that, for all intents and purposes, are educated, probably have a second language, be it French or English. But these are all qualifications and education that we look at. At the same time, you have to look at the security aspects, ensuring that the individuals themselves do not pose a threat to the Canadian citizenry, or for that matter, our way of life.